Hello, Josh McDavid here yet again um, for a third video. Welcome back to my channel for those who have been here before. That's kind of funny that we say here when you're not actually here. You're kind of just looking through a window into my life. But I suppose we don't really have a better word for it. So welcome back to my channel nonetheless. I appreciate you stopping by, and for those who are new, welcome for the first time. So I am currently in a video series, the first one on my channel, where I'm just going over the books that are in my collection so far in my library. I have one bookshelf right now. Not all my books will fit onto this bookshelf, but right now I'm just going over the books that are there, and I am on the third shelf of my bookshelf. Each shelf has taken one video, so here's the third in the series. The first bookshelf consisted of American history, which is a passion of mine, something I've been studying over the years. The second bookshelf is dedicated to primarily Christian literature, Christian theology, devotionals, Christian living. And so today we're going to go to my third bookshelf, and I'll show you what I have there. Right now, I'm just trying to keep everything organized by a theme, as you can tell with the first two. This third one is comprised of books about, let's say, self-development, about especially manhood, about being a good father, being a good husband, being a good contributor to society. And so I also, I think, have some biographies of some great men that I admire in various ways for different reasons. Obviously, you got to throw out the bathwater sometimes, but you don't throw out the baby when you look at great men in history. So I'll let you I'll let you take a look at some of the books that I have, and go from there. Let me switch this camera around. All right, so shelf number 3. We have the very first book. It's called On Heroes, Hero Worship, and the Heroic in History. I've read a lot of this book, where Thomas Carlyle, I believe he's a 19th century author, discusses great man theory. And he's a proponent of great man theory, where he says that basically history is decided, is perpetuated, is actuated by great men in history. Now, of course, any extreme is a vice and is not quite telling us the full story. So obviously, there have been women in history that have certainly affected and moved history. But I would say I generally agree with Thomas Carlyle that men, for the most part, have done most of the moving. They have been the primary zeitgeist, if you will, spirit of the age movers. And so this book, he goes over various great men and discusses how they have changed history, changed culture, changed civilization, changed philosophy, changed our understanding of science, of just the world, right? The physical and the metaphysical. So, for instance, I'll just show you a few different things we have here. We have like the hero as a poet, and then he talks about Dante and Shakespeare. And you'll see highlights in here because that's how I kind of glean wisdom or insight, something that's hit me that I find very useful. I will just go through and highlight that passage. So we have the hero as a prophet, and he's got Muhammad. Let's see. He talks about like what makes a great man, what makes a hero, what do all of these figures in history have in common. and how do we kind of bring everything together to an understanding of the human spirit, of the human soul, of the various nations, and how they've culminated into what they are today. And so yeah, I mean, let's see. I mean, here's just something I highlighted just to give you a sense as to what we're talking here. It is the property of every hero in every time, in every place and situation, that he come back to reality, that he stand upon things and not shows of things. Not sure exactly what reason I highlighted that at that point, but it obviously, in that passage, in that context, meant something to me at the time. Or here we go, let's see. Are not all true men that live, or that ever lived, soldiers of the same army, enlisted under heaven's captaincy, to do battle against the same enemy, the empire of darkness and wrong? Why should we misknow one another? Fight not against the enemy, but against ourselves, from mere difference of uniform. All uniforms shall be good, and so they hold in them true valiant men. All fashions of arms, the Arab turban, and swift scimitar, Thor's strong hammer smiting down Jotuns, shall be welcome. Luther's battle voice, Dante's march melody, all genuine things are with us, not against us. We are all under one voice. Dante's march melody, all genuine things are with us, not against us. Oh, whoops, I already read that. We are all under one captain, soldiers of the same host. So he's just talking how throughout history, good versus evil. That's essentially what he's trying to say, and that those things take various forms sometimes. Not sure if I'm 100% agreement, but interesting nonetheless. All right. Appreciate you sticking with me if you haven't tuned out yet. Bear Grylls, Mud, Sweat, and Tears. This is his autobiography. You know, I really was impressed with Bear, just with the resiliency he's had in his life, the adversity he's kind of overcome, he's very, let's say, gritty, I would say is a good word for him. And it just tells you his life story up to that date, and how he has, you know, gained worldwide fame, how he has built himself up as a man of strength, as a man that really, I think, is honorable. And so he goes into especially into his time in the military. I believe the British military, maybe it's that SAS, does that sound right? And just like the life lessons that he learned over time. 4 Pillars of a Man's Heart. So this is a book from a Christian perspective, which I am a Christian myself, that tells you like what a man's about, what a man should be about, what his responsibilities are, his duties are. And I'm going to open up this one and show you one particular, if I can find it. Let's see, chart that I really, really liked, or picture that I really, really liked. Here it is. That says that this is basically the gist of the book. All right. And this is by 4 Pillars of Man's Heart by Stu Weber. And let's see. He basically says that a man should have a king pillar, a warrior pillar, a mentor pillar, and a friend pillar. And then he gives you the scriptural basis for these roles, these pillars, which are really just roles of a man. And then he talks about how like there are extremes to each one of these roles in which we could fall, victim to. I don't know if victim's the right word, but you know what I'm saying. Which, I mean, it really reminds me of Aristotle when he says that there are 2 poles that are extremes and that are vices, and that within the middle of a spectrum is your moderation, which is your virtue. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. Here's our extremes. So he says, if you could either be a tyrant king or a abdicator, which means you are just allowing for anarchy, right? You've left the throne of your household, let's say, of your family, and so now you're just allowing for chaos. Tyrant is when you just micromanage, when you are harsh, when you are not loving, right? And he says that within the king pillar, you are to have a vision and to provide. Now, this could be probably, obviously in your family, but also in your business. It could be for your country. I mean, you could apply this pillar in any facet of your life where you have some sort of role that requires you to take charge, right? In a diplomatic, tactful, loving, respectful way, but in a way that is also defined, that brings order into chaos. Next, he talks about being a warrior, and the perversion, if you will, of the warrior pillar is you're either a brute, so you're like all fight, right? No gentleness, no love, or you're a coward. That's pretty self-explanatory. But he says when you're actually within that middle ground of the warrior role, the warrior pillar, then you will have strength, and you will use that strength to protect those you love, the values that you hold dear, more dear, or we'll say that are worth more than your life, right? Next, he talks about your mentor pillar, which is the healthy mentor pillar is imparting wisdom and to teach those that are under your tutelage. And then when you are out of sync with the healthy mentor role, then you are either a know-it-all, right? Not open to being coached, not open to being humble, or you are a dunce. Next, finally, he talks about being a friend. And as a friend, you love, you connect, you show concern and care, and you offer advice. Sometimes you just lend an ear. You are there not only to talk to, but you'll be there to lend an actual hand. You will take action. And when you are not in that healthy role within that aspect of your life, then you are either a smotherer or a loner. So, that just gives you a sense as to what he expounds upon in this book called 4 Pillars of a Man's Heart. All right. Next, let's see. Sovereignty by Ryan Michler over at Order of Man. If you haven't checked out his group, I recommend it. He talks a lot about just how every man needs to be sovereign and needs to stop being the victim and always pretending like he doesn't have any control over matters, and instead start to take sovereignty in his life where he can, right? Like, we can't control the outside world all the time, but we can control our response. We can control certain things in our immediate vicinity that are impacting us and others. So he's really just an advocate for not making excuses, but instead taking action, taking responsibility as a man for your family, in your community, in your church, friend group, the like. Wild at Heart by John Eldredge. Man, this book is good. It's really good. I read this a few years back, and it's basically how men have become domesticated in a lot of ways, how over the years, because of great men before us, we have we don't have the battles, we don't have the things to build, we don't have the adversity, we don't have to live rugged lifestyles, right? Like, we are in comfort, and so we've got this meaning crisis, this purposelessness, this aimlessness, and in how, like, in deep in our hearts, we know that we're being called to something greater than what we're currently doing and how we're currently living. We're being called for I think he says a battle to fight, like a woman to love. What's he say? Let's see if we got it here. Let's just read the back real quick. Every man was once a boy, and every little boy has dreams, big dreams, dreams of being the hero, of beating the bad guys, of doing daring feats and rescuing the damsel in distress. Every little girl has dreams too, of being rescued by her prince and swept up into a great adventure, knowing that she is the beauty. But what happens to those dreams when we grow up? We walk into most churches, have a look around, and ask yourself, what is a Christian man? Without listening to what is said, look at what you find. Most Christian men are bored. Man, you guys can't see that at all, can you? Well, what happens to those dreams when we grow up? Oh, we read that. In Wild at Heart, John Eldredge invites men to recover the masculine heart, defined in the image of a passionate God, and he invites women to discover the secret of a man's soul and to delight in the strength and wildness men were created to offer. Sorry. Hard to read on this phone. Anyway, so that's Wild at Heart. Highly recommend it, especially if you're a man. If you're a woman and you want to kind of learn what's in most men's hearts, what really speaks to us deeply, I would recommend this too. The Everyday Leader, I believe I've read that. Practical, let's say, tactics for leading by, let's see what's his name? Oh no, I guess it's Hema Crockett and Michael Crockett. All right. This one, motivational classics. A lot of these maybe you've heard of. Acres of Diamonds, The Kingship of Self-Control, and As a Man Thinketh. I can't remember if I did go through here and highlight or not different things that spoke to me. But this is like absolute motivational, self-development, inspirational type of lectures, I believe, that were put into writing in many cases that I highly recommend, especially As a Man Thinketh, which I have another version of that right here. And I have gone through and just cleaned out some wisdom, I believe, that I'll share with you if I can find. All right. So this is talking about how a man's thoughts, how our thoughts give rise to either our health or illness, to a life of productivity, a life that keeps ever expanding and growing in relationships and in, let's say, prosperity, not just material prosperity, but fulfillment of the soul. So we're either growing or we're deteriorating, right? And we are weakening instead of strengthening. And so that's what he talks about, and how our thoughts are basically a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if we're thinking positively, and it's more than just positive thinking, it's realistic positivity that we go and actuate in the world. We actually live it out. We don't just think it and hope that it comes true, but our thoughts do lead to our actions. So let me give you a taste of this one here. Woo! Sorry guys, I need to work on my camera abilities, or lack thereof. Alright, so this will just give you a sense here of, and let me just, instead of you looking at a blur, here, you can just look at me as I don't know which is worse, but as I read a couple passages here. Alright. Thanks guys for your patience. For those of you who are still with me. Alright, so here's some examples. So he's talking about here in As a Man Thinketh. This is by James Allen. He's talking here about somebody who is young and starting to work hard in the world and have a good attitude about it, and who is ambitious and has a vision, has goals, and is trying to be disciplined in achieving those goals. I believe that's what he's talking about here. when he says, here is a youth, hard pressed by poverty and labor, confined long hours in an unhealthy workshop. He's unschooled and lacking all the arts of refinement, but he dreams of better things. He thinks of intelligence, of refinement, of grace and beauty. He conceives of, mentally builds up an ideal condition of life. So he's got that vision and that goal. The vision of a wider liberty and a larger scope takes possession of him. Unrest urges him to action, and he utilizes all his spare time and means, small though they are, to the development of his latent powers and resources. Very soon, so altered has his mind become that the workshop can no longer hold him. It has become so out of harmony with his mentality that it falls out of his life as a garment is cast aside, and with the growth of opportunities which fit the scope of his expanding powers, he passes out of it forever. Years later, we see this youth as a full-grown man. We find him a master of certain forces of the mind, which he wields with worldwide influence and almost unequaled power. In his hands he holds the cords of gigantic responsibilities. He speaks, and lo, lives are changed. Men and women hang upon his words and remold their characters. And sun-like, he becomes, and we're talking like the sun in the sky like, he becomes the fixed and luminous center around which innumerable destinies revolve. So I love that. I mean, I love that he's saying, like, you know, it doesn't matter his circumstances as he's growing. What matters is that he's growing. What matters is he has an ideal, he has a vision, he has a direction, and he has a lofty goal where he's actually pulling himself up, right, through his thoughts, which then lead to action, which I think he says, like, your thoughts are like seeds. And those seeds are going to lead to either a healthy way of living and looking at life and taking action and imposing your vision upon the world, or you're going to be simply a product of your circumstances. And you're going to be, instead of proactive, you're going to be reactive, right, to what is happening to you. And you are not going to be you're not going to be a formidable force in the world. And the world's just going to impose its will upon you. So we have to decide. And I think that's essentially what he's saying. And I appreciate, again, you guys sticking with me, not trying to be too long-winded. We'll go to a few more books here, and then we'll call it a video for bookshelf number 3. All right. We have not gotten through many books. Iron John, really good book for men. And he's just trying to describe, you know, the same types of things of like what really means a lot to a man. Art of Manliness, this is really good. Check out their website. They've got a podcast. I think it's Brett McKay. He talks about a lot of skills that men should learn, and that's what this is it's teaching skills to men, especially for men who didn't have fathers or grandfathers that showed them those things. Men on Fire, I mean, these are all kind of the same types of themes. They just come at being a man in different ways. And, you know, I had a great-grandfather who taught me a lot of things, not necessarily explicitly. It was more modeled. This is the kind of the explicit teachings of some things that sometimes you find you can't articulate. And maybe you didn't even know. And some of these authors do a great job at articulating kind of those deep-seated thoughts and desires of a man, of us wanting to bring order to chaos, of us wanting to lead, of us wanting to have a purpose, of us wanting to love, of us wanting to be brave and have chances to prove ourselves, and us knowing that we're enough, of us knowing that we have an origin, we have a destiny, and these things. So these books they all mean a lot to me. War of Art talks about basically how you have this thing called resistance. You have creative abilities. You have things you want to make and put forth, and those things are kind of divine. And then you have resistance. Resistance is our laziness, is our distractions, is our let's say, concerns, anxieties, whatever the case may be, and how we have to fight that. That's what the War of Art is about. Let's see, we got the 48 Laws of Power. I have not gotten too far into that, by Robert Greene. This, I certainly, it's almost like getting into the minds of my enemy, because I will tell you that, I don't think this way. I don't think the way that a lot of examples of people who are looking for power think. I think in very manipulative, kind of like calculating ways, right? And this is about how to influence people to do what you want, how to kind of gain power, gain prestige, gain control. I'm not that type of person, so it's a very interesting read to kind of get in the heads of people and maybe catch them doing some of these things, so that way you're not caught off guard, you're not taken advantage of, you're not gullible. So it's very interesting. Some of these other books, we have Paul Johnson, Heroes, kind of similar to the hero worship, great man theory type of thing. He talks about Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Churchill. Let's see, Keep Sharp. This has to do with building a better brain at any age, by Sanjay Gupta. I read part of that. Book of Virtues. I really love this for my kids, actually. This is about what it says, virtues. So we got like friendship, we got like responsibility. So these are the different virtues that this gentleman, I believe it's William Bennett, teaches through the lessons of people's lives, through the lessons of fictional literature. So you have like Abraham Lincoln, so you have compassion, and he'll give you examples of these different virtues in history, in literature, courage, and some of these are not even, some of these are like, they're not big names, they're not big historical figures. He will give you lessons from his life, or examples from his life, examples from the lives of others. There's a really good father-son letter in here, which one day maybe I'll pull out, and it really speaks to me. It's just a father trying to impart wisdom to his son. Nobody knows much about the father or the son. I know his son went to Harvard, but I think it was like a early 1900s letter, and it's so good, so good. So yeah, Book of Virtues by William Bennett, The Book of Man by William Bennett, Freedom to Choose by Milton Friedman. He's an avid capitalist. I guess you would call him an economist. He's passed away, but he talks about he used to talk about capitalism, free market economy, free enterprise versus communism versus socialism. I believe I'm getting that right. So yeah, have not read this. I've watched plenty of videos of him online though, and he's a brilliant thinker, and his points are very hard to rebut. I'm sure some people have differing views. I'm not saying I 100% agree with him either, but check him out one day and see what you think. This is a Latin book that I found. I get a lot of these books at Half Price Books, some of them off thriftbooks.com, just so you guys know, for very cheap. American Boys, the handy book for boys, another older book. I don't know if I said it already, but I really appreciate old books. I feel like they are closer to, let's say, a classical sense of virtue and of principles and values, more so than today. A lot of writers today just have a very obvious agenda, and I'm talking way far left politically and far right politically. And I like these books because they tend to be, a lot of the older ones, they tend to be more moderate, and and not political. I like that. Got Hatchet here, The Wonder of Boys. I've got a couple sons, so this just talks about raising them. Barbarians Inside the Gates by Thomas Sowell. He's a thinker I really appreciate. He's an intellectual, I guess you would call him. He's still alive today. So yeah, I don't want this video to go too much longer. We still have a few books to go though. We got Napoleon, A Life by Andrew Roberts. What I've read so far is really, really good. Napoleon is obviously a well-known figure and an important one to get to know. The Heart of the Sea by Nathaniel Philbrick. I think this is a story of where a group of seamen get lost at sea, and I believe they have to start cannibalizing each other. I have not finished it. It's a true story. Grant by Ron Chernow. I didn't have room, I guess, up there where my American history collection is, so I've got it down here. Endurance. This is really, really good. Man, also by Nathaniel Philbrick. It's about a ship called the Endurance, where they go to, I believe, walk the length of Antarctica, but then their ship gets stuck in the thick of the ice, and then I don't know how they survive, but it's just an insane story where not one crew member dies, and they survive all this time, and you know, the glacier, I guess they're, well, what are they? Icebergs. Out in the freezing cold with hardly any food, and they finally make it back, and it's nuts. You gotta read it. I also think they have a movie about it. Let's see, any others here? I mean, sorry if I'm skipping over some that you'd be interested in. This is called The Strenuous Life by Theodore Roosevelt. He just talks about how we need to live a strenuous life. We're not meant to live a life of ease. We have a function, we have a purpose on this planet, more than just being comfortable, being living in luxury. That's just how we rot, right? And so he says, like, go out there and milk life for all it's worth, get all you can out of it, and see what your potential is. Stretch yourself, expand yourself, and that's where you will find true happiness, true joy, true fulfillment, true purpose. So yeah, it's pretty good. I got Abigail and John Adams letters. I've not read a ton of those. The Celts, I plan on reading that. Martin Luther by Eric Metaxas. I'm sorry if I'm not giving you guys some of these authors too. The Theft of America's Soul by Phil Robertson. Church History. This is a book by my old pastor, Brian Tome, called Move. Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. Love Pilgrim's Progress. It's an allegory for the life that we live on earth and us trying to make it to heaven, to eternal life, and just like the journey of it all. I have not read the Gulag Archipelago. Jordan Peterson's talked a lot about it, so I bought it again for cheap. So yeah, I mean that's just a few of the books I have on this. That's the books I have on this third shelf. I plan on going to the fourth as soon as possible. Fourth shelf consists of David McCullough's 1776. We'll skip over some of that. We got things like The Art of War. We got a lot of interesting ones. If I can show you, that we'll go over next time. So that, again, if you're still with me, I appreciate it. Give me a like if you can. Give me a subscribe if you want to. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I hope that somebody got something out of this. I hope that if you've read any of these books, that you would let me know what you think. Give me some books that you think I can add to my collection, especially along the lines of what I've got on this third shelf. And please, what was the other thing I was going to say? Goodness. Oh, and if you do purchase any of these books and you're able to read them and review them, let me know what you think. Let me know any concepts that we went over today and some of the passages that I read, some of the excerpts that I read. Let me know what you think about those. And thanks again. I know I could probably not be quite as long-winded in these videos, so I'll work on that. But I appreciate your time today. Have a good one. Till next time.